Yeah, the thing I find most tricky is when people don't recognize you particularly, but half recognize.
The boy who struggled with such a severe stutter that classmates cruelly labeled him an alien eventually grew into one of the most adored comedians the world has ever known. Rowan Atkinson's rise, however, came with a hidden emotional price. He discovered that his stutter vanished entirely whenever he performed, yet that same relief carried a heavy burden. Each episode of Mr. Bean drained him emotionally, leaving him exhausted rather than fulfilled. He openly described the character as tiring and admitted he often counted down the days until filming was over. Despite making millions laugh across the globe, Rowan confessed that he frequently felt like an imposter. Now, at 70 years old, he has begun opening up about how childhood trauma shaped every part of his life. The quiet comedian who once struggled to speak has finally found the confidence to tell his own story. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on January 6, 1955, in Consett, a small town in County Durham, England. He was the youngest of 4 boys, but tragedy struck before he was old enough to remember it. His eldest brother, Paul, passed away as an infant, leaving Rowan to grow up with just 2 surviving brothers. One of them, Rodney Atkinson, later became an economist and even nearly rose to lead the UK Independence Party in the year 2000. Raised on a farm, Rowan lived a structured, quiet, and disciplined childhood. Ironically, the boy surrounded by silence would later become world famous for portraying loud, foolish, and exaggerated characters. Around the age of 5, Rowan developed a serious speech impediment. His stutter made it difficult to speak fluently, turning school into a painful experience. He attended Durham Tourister School, where bullying was relentless. Canon John Grove, who worked there, later recalled Rowan as a timid child with an expressive face and a noticeable speech difficulty. Some classmates went even further, mocking his appearance and calling him an alien. They laughed at how he spoke and how he looked, pushing him into isolation. Rowan spent much of his childhood alone, withdrawn from others. One of his classmates was Tony Blair, who was 2 years younger and would eventually become Prime Minister. Blair later recalled just how difficult school life was for Rowan. The severity of the bullying was documented years later in a 2007 article published by The Independent. Something extraordinary happened whenever Rowan stepped onto a stage. The stutter that plagued him in daily life vanished completely during performances. He could speak freely, clearly, and confidently. The very pain that defined his childhood became the foundation of his greatest gift. Despite the bullying, Rowan excelled academically. He earned top grades in his Science A levels and secured a place at Newcastle University in 1973. At just 18 years old, he began studying electrical and electronic engineering. Most people assumed his future lay in science, not comedy. He graduated in 1975 at the age of 20, then followed his father's academic path by enrolling at the Queen's College, Oxford, for a master's degree. His MSc focused on advanced self-tuning control systems, an exceptionally complex field. He even began working toward a PhD, but never completed it, feeling drawn toward a different calling. One of his lecturers, Chris Robson, later said Rowan was unremarkable in class. Yet the moment he performed, everything changed. That was when his transformation truly began. While studying at Oxford in 1975, Rowan joined the Drama Society and a review group called ETC. It was there that he met a young writer named Richard Curtis, a meeting that would shape both of their lives forever. Curtis first saw Rowan perform during a rehearsal in early 1976. He later described noticing a quiet, odd-looking man standing off to the side. But once Rowan performed, Curtis was stunned. Rowan delivered a sketch about driving in another where he mimed actions while speaking simultaneously. Curtis described the performance as pure genius. In August 1976, Rowan performed with the Oxford Review at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. It was his first exposure to a national audience. The show was well received, and suddenly his future became clear. He was no longer just an engineering student. He was a performer. Although he officially began his master's degree in 1975 and published his thesis in 1978, acting increasingly consumed his time. Balancing engineering and comedy was challenging, yet his technical background never left him. Years later, he became one of the earliest celebrity adopters of electric and hybrid cars, purchasing a hybrid 18 years before 2023 and a fully electric vehicle 9 years before that. He later used his expertise to publicly criticize EV technology and environmental claims, but comedy remained his true passion. Rowan's first major break came in 1979 with The Atkinson People, a BBC Radio 3 comedy series. He portrayed fictional characters such as Sir Corin Basin and French philosopher Georges Dupin. Richard Curtis co-wrote the show, and Griff Rhys-Jones produced it. Although clever and well-crafted, it struggled to attract listeners due to its unsuitable time slot. Still, critics recognized Rowan's talent. The show was recorded in stereo, similar to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. While it didn't make him famous, it proved he was ready for bigger opportunities. Between 1978 and 1979, Rowan faced repeated rejection from the BBC. Executives failed to understand his style of comedy, leaving him frustrated and depressed. His stutter worsened during interviews and auditions, making things even harder. At one point, he considered abandoning comedy entirely and returning to engineering. Then came a crucial realization. Whenever he performed as a character, his stutter disappeared. That discovery empowered him. He no longer needed to speak perfectly as himself. His characters could speak for him. Rowan continued collaborating with Oxford friends like Angus Deaton, who often played the straight man to Rowan's absurd characters. Their radio work helped Rowan develop confidence away from television pressure. In 1979, at age 24, Rowan returned to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. He was even seen helping build the stage at the new Wireworks Theatre. His largely silent performance, inspired by Buster Keaton, confused some audience members, with a few walking out. Others, however, recognized something extraordinary. His mastery of facial expressions and body language set him apart. By 1980, Rowan returned to television auditions. His pilot Canned Laughter aired in 1979 and featured an early version of Mr. Bean. Though clever, it wasn't picked up. His stutter still appeared during auditions, but he learned to overcome it by fully immersing himself in character. By the time he appeared on Wogan in 1980 at age 25, he had gained control. The struggle was nearing its end. That same year, Rowan joined Not the 9 O'Clock News. Originally delayed due to a general election, the show finally aired on October 16, 1979. Ratings were terrible, critics were brutal, and some called it offensive. Mel Smith famously described it as the worst half hour of television he'd ever seen. Yet, the BBC controller believed in it and ordered another series immediately, saving the show and turning it into a comedy landmark. Behind the scenes, tensions ran high. Chris Langham was fired after one series, despite Rowan's objections. Budget cuts followed, forcing creative compromises. Rowan's perfectionist nature emerged, and the show shifted toward more clever, surreal humor. Then came the defining moment. The Gerald the Gorilla sketch. Rowan's explosive line, "Wild, I was absolutely livid," became legendary. The sketch influenced even scientific humor and helped the show win major awards, including a BAFTA. In 1981, the cast unexpectedly released the song "I Like Trucking." It became a hit, with Rowan actually driving the truck himself, thanks to his real Class 1 lorry license. By 1982, exhaustion forced the cast to end the show despite its success. Rowan chose mental health over fame and moved on to Blackadder. Blackadder debuted in 1983, co-created with Richard Curtis. The first series was expensive and risky, nearly canceled despite winning an international Emmy. The show was reinvented with Blackadder 2 in 1986, introducing sharper writing, smaller sets, and iconic characters like Queenie. Over time, it became a classic. Blackadder Goes Forth aired in 1989, blending comedy with the tragedy of World War I. Its final scene became one of the most emotional moments in television history. The show won major awards and cemented Rowan's legacy. Then came Mr. Bean in 1990. The character's silence made him universally accessible. The show aired in 245 countries and broke viewing records, yet Rowan hated playing the role. It exhausted him physically and emotionally. Despite global success, the character drained him. The 1997 Bean movie earned over $251 million worldwide. The animated series later allowed Rowan to continue the character without physical strain. His 2012 Olympic performance reached nearly 1 billion viewers but left him exhausted for weeks. Rowan continued acting in films like 4 Weddings and a Funeral and the Johnny English franchise. His personal life, political views, environmental stance, and later relationships all sparked controversy. He survived a near-fatal plane incident in 2001 by keeping the aircraft steady until the pilot recovered. He spoke in Parliament about free speech in 2012, influencing real legal change. By 70, Rowan Atkinson's influence had become undeniable. Mr. Bean amassed billions of views, inspired comedians worldwide, and even confirmed a long-running fan theory that Bean was an alien. Despite dozens of awards, Rowan still doubts himself. To the world, he is a legend. To himself, he remains the quiet boy who once struggled to speak, but never stopped trying.